think I just accidentally deleted an email. Let me go back and
All
get it.
right.
You do it
Hi,
tonight.
folks, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Steven Negishi, and as always, my co-host tonight is from the Awful Announcing. He is the associate editor of the Awful Announcing. It is Ken Fang. Ken, good evening, and how are you tonight?
Good. How are you, Steven? I was talking him to myself.
Yeah,
But my apologies. I was
no
looking for,
problem.
but good to be on with you. I have a lot of things to discuss tonight, so glad to be on with
Absolutely.
you. And let's get to it.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get to the what's the world of sports right now, and obviously it is on everybody's mind right now. It is the NBA and the NHL playoffs. You know, we're watching the game as you are right now as well. I'm watching one myself too, and we spoke about it last week in detail about the first round that was most of that ended. Let's start with the NBA first. Right now, the second round is underway right now, and it does seem like the Knicks and the Pacers. We all remember the 20 years ago when the Pacers and the Knicks had a super battle back in the day. For the Eastern Conference supremacy. Just as when the Bulls were kind of on a downturn when Michael Jordan abruptly retired due to his father's death. And this playoff series so far, Ken, between the Pacers and the Knicks, have certainly lived up to their expectations. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. When you got a series that's 2-2, going to a game 5, it's really what you want in the NBA. Like I said last week, as much as I hate the New York Knicks, you want to see New York do well, especially if you're the NBA and the NHL. You want those markets in, especially going at least to the Eastern Conference Final, and it certainly looks very good. At least at least right now, if you project everything going through, the Rangers and the Knicks would go to the Eastern Conference Finals. But right now, just seeing the Indiana and New York, and for those of fans who are old enough to remember those great games between the Pacers and the Knicks, and Reggie Miller,
Yeah.
egging on the Spike Lee, it's just great to watch. And of course, Miller did game 1 last week for TNT, and we'll discuss TNT a little bit later too. The fact is that to me, Steven, that it's just great to see. Especially you want to see a 2-2 series, especially going into game 5. It's what you want. You don't want an elimination game in game 5. You're going to have a long series, at least 6, possibly 7. And you want that electric atmosphere in Madison Square Garden like you're going to have.
Yeah. The Knicks took the first 2 games. It was it was a real close game. The Pacers could have stolen one of those games. They had the lead in both games, unfortunately, but the Knicks really pushed the buttons, and Jalen Brunson was awesome. But then when you get back to Indiana, the Pacers really started to play in their elements. They really played well the last 2 games. That last game in game 4 was just a complete blowout from the start to finish. It wasn't even close. No, it wasn't nowhere near as close as the first 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and you kind of wonder if the Knicks are kind of against the ropes right now because, first of all, Tom Thibodeau, as a former Bulls fan, as a Bulls fan and a former head coach, with the Bulls, he has a tendency to wear players out, whether it's regular season or even in playoffs like this.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be very, very interesting to see. Right now the Knicks and the Pacers are playing Game 5 in New York, and without OG Agnovi, and some of the guys are kind of dealing with some ailments. I know Jalen Brunson wasn't, 100% healthy by any stretch, but Brunson has to really carry this team right now, moving forward. If the Knicks are to get to, not just the Eastern Conference Finals, but the NBA Finals that they have not been to since 1999, if I'm not mistaken, that strike shortened season. So like 20, 25 years ago. So, it's going to be something if they can get there, as long as, the Villanova Knicks, Dante DiVincenzo,
right.
Brunson and Josh Hart, those guys have to, do their job, have to make a really, key 3-pointers, throughout the ball game. But again, the Knicks are kind of their backs are against the rope. I think right now they're kind of running on fumes. I think a lot of people are expecting that if the Knicks lose out in this series, it's because of Tom Thibodeau's tendency to run his players to the ground. So I'm very curious to see the next 3 games, what the minutes are going to look like, and if the Knicks can, manage to stave off, being eliminated. Because if they lose here in Game 5, with a 3-game losing streak after 2-0 start, it's going to be very, very difficult going to Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely, Steven. And there's a lot. It's been a while for the Knicks to make an absolutely spectacular run in the playoffs. As I mentioned, but again, seeing an atmosphere like you're seeing at Madison Square Garden like this, seeing celebrities in the crowd, of course, whether you're watching TNT or ESPN throughout this round of the playoffs, it's just it's exactly what you want. But as a fan, for me, I'd rather see Indiana win and take out the Knicks. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially pivotal Game 5 tonight.
All right, moving on to the other Eastern Conference semifinals. Boston beat Cleveland yesterday. It was probably the first time in this series that Celtics barely won, barely as in like in the single digits in this entire postseason. Cleveland played without, I believe, Donovan Mitchell, the Spider, and maybe a couple of others. Jared Allen, I believe, was still out because of the rib injury. And Cleveland, give them credit, gave a nice run, in Game 2 in Boston. I'm sure you probably saw this, Ken. Cleveland really beat up on Celtics in Game 2. And then Game 3 and 4 so far, it's been all Boston. And tomorrow night, it looked like, could be the end of Cavaliers' postseason run. And there could be some questions in regards to Cleveland in the future of Donovan Mitchell, because obviously, he was traded from Utah to Cleveland and certainly helped catapulted the Cavs run ever since, LeBron left and the team was kind of in disaster or disarray. But, the Cavs might be facing some similar situations with, Donovan Mitchell whenever Cavs get eliminated, which could be as early as tomorrow night. And, the Boston, they look like that they're the team to beat, not just in the Eastern Conference, but in the entire NBA universe right now. And I see no problem tomorrow night, beating the Cavs and getting an early advancement to the Eastern Conference final, where they're just have a nice a couple of days of rest before they face either the Pacers or the Knicks.
Yeah, Cleveland played really hard, and they were up on the Celtics last night. But give credit to the Celtics. They could have easily said, "Well, we're on the road. We're not expected to win here. We already won Game 3 here. We can at least go back home where we know we can win." But give credit to the Celtics. They bore down yesterday, really played hard, and got the job done. And they managed to eke out a victory, as you mentioned. Wasn't easy, as you mentioned, single digits because the Celtics have been playing really lights out up until now. But last night they played a really character building game, and when you're playing for the NBA Finals, you're going to have those games. Maybe a game that they shouldn't have won, but they got the job done. So good on them. And they have an opportunity to close out the series at home at TD Garden on Thursday, which I believe is an ESPN game. So that'll be ESPN will be quite happy to at least there's a opportunity. Well, Boston's leading 1-0 on Florida right now to try to extend the series against the Florida Panthers as I'm looking right now. But I'll be honest, it looks like at least the Celtics have a very good chance of advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA.
Yeah.
While we'll discuss them later on.
Oh no, go ahead, Ken. Whatever you want to talk about the Celtics at this point, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that the Celtics, I just really think are really bearing down. I think they learned a little bit about last year when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to Miami last year, Steven. So I think that's just something that they learned about. They've got a good coach who learned some lessons from last year. He got out-coached several times, especially in the Miami series. So here he is right now. He's bearing down. He's making some very good decisions, and he's letting his players play. And I think that's all you want in the NBA. The NBA, you just basically want a coach who manages. You don't want them to be overbearing, not like in college, right? When you have a college, the coach is the personality. When you have the NBA, you want a manager. You want a guy who just basically says, okay, here's what you're going to do. And stays out of the way and lets them play. So I think the Celtics have the perfect coach in Joe Mazzulla.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the Western Conference. And again, I got to tell you, whoever comes out of this has a good case of winning the NBA Finals as much as the Celtics are, who is the proverbial favorite to come out of the East and also maybe win it all based on their regular season records and so forth. But let's kind of look back at yesterday's Thunder Mavericks game. The Mavericks, had a really nice game Saturday afternoon. And, after dropping game one, they won the last two games. And yesterday they could have taken a commanding 3-1 lead. And, they had a very decent lead. But I got to tell you, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what a great player he is. And I tell you, he has been the guy catalyst to the resurgence of OKC. Not to mention, of course, the luck when it comes to the lottery draft and their accumulation of so many draft picks that they can use for, getting a veteran star or maybe add more young pieces for the future runs. And, watching that game yesterday, when the Mavs were kind of started to slowly lose their lead, I had a really bad feeling because Thunder was just tenacious, throughout the game. They made some shots, there's no question, but I think the Mavericks, no doubt, will regret this game if they lose this series. Mm-hmm. And yesterday's free throw shooting was just atrocious. They barely made 50%, over 50% of the free throws yesterday. But more importantly, I think, Luka Doncic has been kind of fighting nagging ankle injuries. I know he's been hobbling throughout the playoffs in the game against Thunder. Lou Dort has been really, really giving him a hard time and kind of may have kind of gotten into his head as well. Luka is a kind of a great superstar, but he also has a tendency to complain a lot, especially when the calls doesn't go against him. He always complains, whining against the officials. Mm-hmm. And, this series, unfortunately, is no exception, on top of his frustration with not being able to play at a full speed right now. So I God forbid, I hope Mavericks can, push this game as far as possible. But if OKC takes this series, I think we can look back at this game 4 and say, yeah, that's the one that they're going to regret for a long, long time.
Yeah, the Mavericks, it just seemed to be a franchise that has a lot of potential, Steven. And
It
just
is. Yeah, they do.
they just give. I mean, they won a championship, but it's only. It seems they should have won at least 3 or 4. Under the ownership of Mark Cuban. I don't know what it is about, especially when they get to a tight game like last night, but they just seem to lose grip, Steven, and you can't have that. And like you said, um, the Mavericks, I don't see them winning this series, to be honest with you. They had a very good opportunity to at least take a good control of it, but then
Yeah.
when you play a game like that, it's a gut punch, and you're just not going to. It's really tough to recover. I know that the Mavs are professionals, and they say, okay, it's one game at a time, but unless they really step it up and try to regroup. I really can't. I really think that really was their opportunity to take control, and they lost it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but last night's game could be a pivotal turning point for this series. If Mavericks, they're kind of hobbling right now. Kyrie was scoreless for the last 9 minutes, which is kind of unheard of, considering how great he was in the Clippers game and the first 2-3 games in this series as well. The Mavericks, I got to say, without PJ Washington, this team would have already been down 0-3 right now. But PJ Washington has been a great addition to this team. Well, let's hope that he has it in him. He has the ability to pick up the slack when Doncic is still hobbling, and they're going to need all hands on deck against the team like Thunder. Thunder's obviously deep with a lot of great young players. SGA obviously is a legitimate MVP candidate. He's going to be a very, very good player for the NBA in a long, long time. Whether he's going to be a Thunder for life, that's another question for another time. But certainly right now they have a real good a balance of size, youth, and there's plenty of youth. Sometimes when you're too young, those things can be seen as a double-edged sword, but right now, OKC seems to be doing just fine, and I could definitely see them advancing to the Western Conference Finals, and they could face the winner of Nuggets and the Timberwolves. And I got to tell you, a lot of people anointed the T-Wolves very, very quickly after they took 2 games in Denver, and then it's a complete opposite in game 3 and 4, where Denver has completely shut out the Minnesota crowd, taking the last 2 games, and now it's basically down to the best of 3.
Yeah, that was really interesting, Steven. To see, you and I were talking about last week. We said that Minnesota seemed to figure out Denver, and it looked like the Joker would seem tired, but all of a sudden they go to Minnesota and they take 2 on the road. So who knows? Basketball is a funny game, Steven. You just can't predict it. I got to say that give credit to Denver. They're a championship team. They showed why the last 2 games by winning the 2 games on the road in the Target Center. So, and the Joker didn't look tired at all. He looked like he was dominant self, like he did during last year's playoffs and last year's run to the finals, Steven. So I got to give credit to Denver. And of course, I think the death knell for that was when Stephen A. Smith said that there's no way that Denver was going to come back and they were going to get swept. And then he declared that on First Take. And through that, you pretty much know that this is going to be a 2-all series. So that's basically what happened. And I got to give my hats off to the Denver Nuggets for finding some intestinal fortitude and winning 2 games on the road. And it really wasn't that close, Steve. It really didn't. It was really interesting just to, every once in a while I would flip over to the game from the hockey and it was just like a morgue inside the Target Center just to see. I mean, it was similar to what we saw in the Ball Arena when Minnesota took the games over there.
That's true.
it was the Target Center being totally opposite, and from what being a noisy arena, and now it's going to be quite interesting. Who's going to win the first home game? Because I think that if Denver can actually win in the Ball Arena in Denver and take out and win it, there'll be a lot of doubt for Minnesota. If they can beat Minnesota in Game 5, there'll be a lot of doubt for the Timberwolves because it just looked to me last night. It looked like to me like the Denver Nuggets.
Sunday,
yeah. It looked like to me like the Denver Nuggets were dominating them. So you see here, and absolutely with the Joker just doing, and this is the half court shot.
That turning point
yes.
in that series, because that was like a huge momentum swing. That dunk was they got to within 10, so now it's 12. Bad pass, buzzer beater. That's a 15-point. That's a 5-point turnaround. So Denver really got close to within a single digits in the fourth quarter, but Denver pulled it off, and they show some real resilience.
Big time three.
That was great.
Oh yeah, the Kevin Harlan, Jamal Murray scene there. That was very synonymous there. So, you're absolutely right. Whoever wins Game 5, and it better be a home team. Denver really cannot fall behind like they did in Game 3, where they were down by 30 points. I just hope that I don't think it will happen, but I think if Denver somehow can win a Game 5 at their home court, that will put a huge pressure on Minnesota to do the same when they get back to Game 6 in Minnesota. So this is a real interesting playoff battles. Next time when we do our show, Ken, we'll definitely know who will be in the conference finals, and we might be deep in Game 3 or Game 4 by our next broadcast. So right now it's to me, from the East, I'm going to say it's Celtics, and I am going to pick the Knicks. I think Knicks Pacers, they'll go to 7, and I think it will be Celtics and the Knicks from the East. And from the West, I think Thunder has way too much depth right now, and I am going to pick the Nuggets. I think Nuggets will win in Game 6. It will be the Thunder and the Nuggets in the Western Conference.
I'll agree with you on the West. I do think the Nuggets are going to have. I think that was a wake up call losing the first 2 games at home. I think they corrected the ship. I think they'll win it out in 6 games, and I'll say OKC is going to win in the West. I'll say the Celtics will win out, close out the game tomorrow night against Cleveland. But I'm also going to say that Indiana will win, causing an absolute monkey wrench for ESPN's plans to have a Celtics New York series for the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll say Indiana will win out.
Okay, good. Let's see what happens next week when we have a better idea. Who will come out of who will be playing, in the conference finals for each conferences. Let's move on to the NHL, where there are a couple of games already going on right now, and NHL playoffs is one of its a class of their own. They have a traditional handshake at the end of the series and everything. So it's just an exciting brand of playoffs. I know a lot of people like the NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, over any other leagues right now, and this is what it looks like right now. And looking at the East right now, it was thought to be that the Rangers and maybe Boston would have facing each other in the conference finals. But alas, right now, Boston has struggled against Florida. The series has been very, very testy. Both teams are, up against each other's throat right now. So far, Florida has gotten the upper hand right now. You live in, obviously, the Bruins country, Ken. Mm-hmm. Kind of give me your thoughts on this series and what could be happening in the next couple of weeks.
Well, Florida has shown them to be the stronger team. Although tonight the Bruins have played much better today. They lead right now. It's 2-1 Boston, but the goal right now that Boston just scored is under review. So we'll
Okay.
see what happens. Review and Boston did not get along, especially in Game 4, when there was a goal that was allowed. Especially, it looked like there was goalie interference by Florida, and one of the Bruins was pushed into was
Right.
pushed it was pushed into Jeremy Swayman. And right now, the goal is going to be allowed, so the Bruins are up 2-1. So that's good. That's good there. But the Bruins, they won Game 1. They looked like they were going to, especially after an emotional series against Toronto, it looked like they were going to be able to take this series. But Florida won 3 straight, and they showed that they're a much fresher team and a stronger team and a more physical team, because they actually a punch took out Captain Brad Marchand during the game. I think it was Game 4, and Game 3. Bruins have to play without him the last 2 games, but they have responded, at least in this game, at least for now, leading 2-1. We'll see what happens going there, and I'm going to have to say that even despite if the Bruins still win tonight, I'll have to say Florida has to be on pace to win this series. I'll be honest, Steven, I'm not very confident in my Bruins right now. The New York Rangers, they took a 3-0 lead on the Carolina Hurricanes, and then lost the last 2 games. They lost Saturday at Raleigh, and then they lost last night in an absolutely horrible effort at home, a chance to close out the series, Steven.
Right.
And they were leading 1-0 going into the second period. But then they allowed 4 straight goals, unanswered goals, and now they go to Raleigh with a very loud crowd at PNC Arena. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. 3-2. There's going to be a lot of doubt right now, especially if the Rangers can't close out the series in Raleigh, a place that they won 2 games. They won games 3. They won the first 2 games. They won the 3 games there. The first 3 games, Carolina did manage to stave off elimination Saturday, and then as I mentioned on Monday, at Madison Square Garden with an opportunity to close out this series, the Rangers just played absolutely horribly. I don't know if they decided that hey, we're going to take it easy. We don't have to worry about this. We can win and take a few days off and wait until Boston and Florida finish out this. Hopefully they play a long series and we can take a few days off. Not the case. So they got to keep playing. So we'll see what happens in the Eastern Conference there, Steven. But if I had to choose right now, I would say the Rangers and Florida will advance to the conference final.
I agree with you there. Let's look at the Western Conference, and this is a much more competitive on this side. But if you look at the top right now, Colorado and Dallas. Dallas has so much firepower. They're playing like the team that won the the Western Conference with the best record. After an 0-2 start against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they have really picked it up. Again, they lost the game 1 in overtime after blowing a 3-0 lead, and it kind of like crept in a bad feeling. But the last 3 games, they really managed to finish off the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche is dealing with more than just being down 3-1. Of course, they're one of their players, Valery Nichushkin, was suspended 6 months for stage 3 of a player assistance program, from what I understand.
Yes,
and it's ironic because he is a former Dallas Star player, and he is now suspended basically for the rest of the playoffs and even maybe a quarter of next year.
And without pay, Steven.
That's a huge 6 months without pay. That is huge.
Yeah.
And I know the response from the Colorado players were very tense and even terse. because they know that their hopes are pretty much gone. When one of their own commits a boneheaded mistake of getting caught with the drugs, and obviously, disease, addiction is a disease. There's certainly nothing to sneeze at, and it's unfortunate as it is, but Nichushkin choose to go his own way. Drugs, alcohol, whatever it is he did, he did something really, really bad enough to get a 6-month suspension, which is kind of unheard of, unfortunately. And, this is kind of like maybe bordering on, former NBA player Roy Tarpley, if you remember, who was suspended for life because of multiple drug violations. And Nichushkin is basically, like on strike 2 right now in his career. So very, very curious to see, how does this impact both the Avalanche and his career moving forward. But I think at this point, it's a foregone conclusion that Dallas can wrap it up tomorrow in Dallas. Vancouver and Edmonton, they'll play game 4 tonight, on ESPN. And this is a very tough series to read right now. And, Edmonton, they got the firepower, with Connor McDavid and Nugent Hopkins.
And Leon Draisaitl too. Yeah,
that is correct. Yes, as long as they're humming and they're firing on all cylinders, then obviously I think Edmonton can definitely win out on this one. But I have a sneaky suspicion, Ken, that this one goes 7 games. And I know you don't have a lot of good things about Vancouver based on your conversation last week, but all right. But I think that no matter who comes out of this series, Vancouver or Edmonton, I think Dallas can definitely rest well easily. And I do believe that Dallas is going to come out on the Western Conference no matter who wins the Vancouver-Edmonton series.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dallas, as you mentioned, is looking like it's all firing on all cylinders right now, Steven. I really can't see them losing this series. Colorado has been snake bitten, as you mentioned, with the suspension of Nichushkin, which happened right before the game 4 last night, and it was really, really shocking to hear. I got the press release from the NHL last night, and I put it on my X account. I was really shocked to see that. But knowing the history of Nichushkin, he's had some demons to deal with. We certainly hope that he gets the help he needs. I know he's had a history of this, and he's also had a lot of other things he's dealing with as well. So I certainly hope that he gets the help. And as you mentioned, getting a suspension for 6 months without pay. That's it's pretty egregious when you get something like that, Stephen. As far as Vancouver and Edmonton, Edmonton's really got to step it up. The 2 losses that they've had against Edmonton, they haven't looked like the Edmonton Oilers with the firepower that they had. The one game that they won, Leon Draisaitl did a great job. The power play was playing very well. But then in game 3 at home, they just all of a sudden just looked like a team that didn't have any idea what it was doing. So, and Vancouver stepped it up and basically took a 2-0 lead and just basically cruised to the rest of the way. I really think that Edmonton, and I really hope this is true, can take the next few games, can step it up because they really have to. Connor McDavid is the future of this league. Along with Leon Draisaitl, they got to get things going here, Stephen. Otherwise, that this could be a team that in Western Canada, you don't want to have Vancouver be the dominant team in Western Vancouver because those fans in Vancouver. I know I'm being a little facetious about this, and I know I'm a little joking about this, but this is a franchise that is really they're a little bit entitled. The fans are spoiled. They think that they know hockey. They really don't. They're really more of bandwagon fans.
Sure.
But and I just really think that Edmonton really needs to take this serious because we really don't want to hear it from Vancouver fans. Vancouver fans are just, I'm not going to go. I don't want to start.
It's all right.
But,
That's fine.
I'm just not a big Vancouver fan. I just think the fans over there are just not really a very good. They're not a good hockey base. Let me just put it that way. I know that they feel that way, and they're I know there's some passionate fans, and there's one that always gets on my case when I always talk about saying anything negatively about the Canucks. And but I just want to say this, that Edmonton really needs to win this series. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. We'll be talking more about the both NBA and the NHL playoffs, perhaps the next week on both leagues. Hopefully, we'll likely have a conference finals in each league. All right, Cav. Let's talk about the NFL schedule. It is officially being released tomorrow night, but if you follow on Twitter, folks, we are starting to see some of the games, mostly primetime games, that are kind of being leaked out right now. So, Ken, obviously, this is your specialty, covering these things on awful announcing. What are you hearing, or what are you seeing as of right now with some of these schedules being out?
Well, some of the games have already been released. We know that in Week 16, there's going to be a doubleheader. This is normally an NFL Network doubleheader, but because the college football playoff are going to be played that weekend with a triple header, the NFL is going to schedule 2 games, and one of them will be on NBC. It'll be an afternoon game. We don't know where the other afternoon game is going to be yet, so that's going to be announced fully on NFL Network tomorrow. Also, one of the bigger things about that's going to be announced is the speculation of the Christmas games. We talked about the NFL deciding to play, which is going to be played on Wednesday night this year. John Oran, my friend who writes over at Puck, last week speculated that Netflix will get both games.
I believe Boomer Esiason was also kind of
Boomer Esiason was the first one who said that, but he said don't be surprised, and it was Oran who confirmed that Netflix was definitely in the running, and the NFL wants the games to be on Netflix. Oran in his newsletter on Puck said that in addition to that, Amazon is trying to bid for one of those games. We'll see what happens. It may not be finalized yet, but the NFL schedule was supposed to be released last week. I think one of the reasons was because the NFL was still negotiating with Netflix on the game. So we'll see if that is when the schedule is released tomorrow, which teams get which network, which streaming service gets those games. But it looks like at least Netflix could get at least one, possibly 2 of those games, which will be played on a doubleheader. In addition to that, the Cowboys will be playing in Week 1. Surprise, surprise. But they're going to be playing, instead of playing on NBC, which has normally been the tradition, Steven, they'll be playing on Fox. So that game will be also Tom Brady's debut, along with Kevin Burkhardt. In addition, the NFL announced that normally that the Week 1 is a doubleheader with CBS and Fox. Instead, to give Fox a little bit more viewership, because everyone's going to wants to see how Tom Brady is doing. That game will be an exclusive game at 4:25 Eastern time for Fox, and then the following week at 4:25 for CBS. That will be Dallas against Cleveland. So I'll definitely be watching that game because
you're a Cleveland Browns fan.
Yeah, my Browns will be in that game. In addition, next week will be the following week, Week 2. We'll see Kansas City and Cincinnati on CBS at 4:25, and in addition, Amazon, their first game, Week 2. Their first Thursday night game will be the Miami Dolphins against the Buffalo Bills. A very good matchup for Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. And the very first Monday Night Football game, we thought it was originally, Steve, was going to be involving the Chicago Bears. I thought that would have been a great spot especially to have a home game in Chicago at Soldier Field with a new quarterback, and a great feeling about that. But instead, the NFL went with a really horrible matchup, at least in my opinion, the New York Jets against the San Francisco 49ers. hopefully Aaron Rodgers won't get hurt like he did in the very first game against the Buffalo Bills last year. We'll see what happens there. But as you mentioned, some games are already beginning to get leaked out. But we'll see the final schedule, and that's and I know people get cynical by saying, "Oh, the NFL has made a big event out of just releasing some games," but it's other leagues and the colleges have also and the conferences have followed suit by making it a big event. So, the NFL is king, Stephen, and we'll be definitely interested to see. And I know you're interested in see where the Bears start in Week 1 and how they do. And where they're going to go, because I think the Bears are definitely going to be a big draw for the NFL, especially at least if not in prime time, at least in the 425 spot for CBS and Fox on Sunday afternoons.
Right now, you're kind of leaning towards that way. I don't know who they're playing, whether it's at home or away. But I just hope that it's not like a too late of a game, because it would be so difficult to, watch the late game and then eventually move on to Sunday Night Football game.
Right.
So, I'm very, very excited as a Bears fan. There's so much to look forward to. And, this is going to be very, very interesting. As you can see, ESPN Monday Night Football, they're moving on from Robert Griffin, who has been fired from the Monday Night Football role. It doesn't say exactly about, he is still definitely a key member of that college football broadcast team.
Yes.
So you could still enjoy watching RG3 there on Saturdays. Jason Kelsey, as expected, fresh off his retirement, will now be the new studio analyst whenever they go on road. For the Monday Night Football game, along with Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Clark, of course. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a new change, in the broadcast booth, studio analyst, as we saw. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Phil Simms and Boomer Esiason, both gone. So, we are starting to see new faces, appearing in the broadcast crew. Tom Brady, of course, he spent the last year basically kind of on a sabbatical. We didn't hear much from him. We finally last time heard it was basically the roast that he had, I believe, last week, right?
Yeah.
And then he eventually admitted that his kids did not take it very, very well. Some of it, Tom Brady. Certainly making some crude jokes about 9/11 and Aaron Hernandez stuff that obviously did not sit well with his ex-wife, Bridget Moynihan, and Aaron Hernandez is, I believe, was it fiance?
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so Tom is learning, kind of a bit of a, navigating through some choppy waters, in the broadcast scene right now, and there's no question Brady, because of his name value and his accomplishment on the field, he's going to face a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attention. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how he handles the limelight. He kind of got a little bit of a taste in terms of media scrutiny and attention with the the roast that was somewhat well received, I guess, in some circles, because I
thought it was funny. I thought it was great. And of course there was tension between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, of course, but I thought people like Nikki Glaser was absolutely hilarious.
Right, I know she got a lot of high marks on that too.
Yes, she was fantastic. Of course, Nikki Glaser does great on roast anyway. She's a very funny comedian, and she also does a great job in she also has her own reality show. But anyway, she's a very funny person. Jeff Ross made a joke about Robert Kraft and the strip club.
Right.
That Tom Brady basically threatened him. But overall, it's a roast, and it was funny, and I understand that Tom Brady regrets it now. But
Yeah.
when you're in the public eye, you're going to be a target, and I think people were hoping to see that a little bit more personality from him. We'll wait and see if he can actually do that in the booth, Stephen. As someone who has seen him here in New England um, be interviewed almost every week on WEEI and his regular spots uh, on television and radio. To me, he hasn't really shown any personality to think that he would be very engaging, and it didn't. I'm sure it didn't. When he made his comments at a podcast that's saying that he would be willing to come back to a team this year if there was a team that was in contention. I'm sure Fox didn't want to hear that either. But if I'm really thinking that it's going to be if he's going to be a lot of scrutiny because Fox paid him a lot of money and forced Greg Olson, who was doing a great job in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt. We'll see where he lands. There was no mention of Greg Olson during the Fox upfronts on Monday, by the way. Interestingly enough, what's when Fox announced its Dallas Cowboys game with the Cleveland Browns on Monday during the upfronts. We'll see, which was a presentation to advertisers, by the way, if you're not too familiar with what that is. But I really think, though, that Brady has got to learn that, and while he understands that he had hatred from fans when he was a player, being in the booth and being on television 3 hours a day, 3 hours on Sunday, there's a different glare there. And people will be hanging on what everything he says, and people will be waiting for him to make a mistake. So you know how social media is, and of course, we at Awful Announcing will report on it as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does, and him learning how to, as you say, learn the ropes of being a broadcaster and having different type of scrutiny than being on a team and being the quarterback and having to, be insulated by the Patriots machine back when he was a player.
Absolutely. Tom Brady certainly is now on the other side of the media now. And, a lot of guys obviously hates, being interviewed by the media, when they were playing. And once their post playing career is over, it's easier for a lot of these guys to transition into media. Nowadays, it's a lot more than ever because they have a platform, YouTube, and their own live stream or even podcast. During their playing days, they started, and now they can do that. As we can see with Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey, as they are, and then we can also see a lot of that with Ryan Clark and also in the basketball scenes as well. Once they are now on the dark side of joining that dark side of the media that they've so despised when they were playing, it would be very, very interesting to see how he takes the job very, very seriously, and I have no doubt that Tom Brady takes it very, very seriously. But I think what maybe the roast kind of taught him, when you're on the other side, there's going to be a lot of backlash, and then also a lot of expectations that come with it. So, I'm very curious to see how long Tom Brady can ride it out. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Tony Romo was when Romo began, which drew rave reviews, and now everybody just cannot wait for Tony Romo to shut up and just be done with it. So I'm very, very curious to see how Tom Brady approaches his broadcast debut with Fox in 2024. All right, Ken, let's kind of change subject a little bit, and I want to talk about this young fellow named Cavan Sullivan. I'm a big soccer fan, and you are as well, Ken. And you really have to be some kind of a diehard to hear about Cavan Sullivan's name. Nobody could probably pick him out. So, in case if you're wondering who the hell that is, he is a 14-year-old soccer phenom who is a academy player from the MLS's Philadelphia Union, which is known for producing some, having one of the best youth academies in the MLS. And he also has a brother who's a damn good player himself, an older brother, Cavan Sullivan, who is a born 2004 and has a chance to make the U.S. men's Olympic team that qualified for the Paris Olympics that will play later this summer. And he's only 14 years old, and he just signed a became the youngest professional athlete. Not just in this country, but perhaps in the world as well. And I say this because 20 years ago, you have to be a real diehard to remember this, and I think you and I are very familiar with the name Freddie Adu. Back in 2004, he was considered the next big thing in U.S. soccer. I remember watching him. He was on Letterman. He was lifting the ball with his back while taking the shirt off and changing, and then putting on a different shirt. He was, hyped up so much, being taken by his hometown DC United because he's from that area. Cavan is probably a little more technical, probably, is just as good as when Freddie Adu was, if not better. Mm-hmm. And as U.S. enters a critical, years of soccer, starting with the Copa America this year and World Cup in 2 years, this is somebody that you're going to see as the future. And it's very, very difficult for 14-year-old kid to be pinned as a some sort of a the next megastar, because usually sometimes a 14-year-old sometimes when the fame gets in it gets into your head, and we all know Freddie Adu never really panned out, and he just was all over the European scene,
right,
playing from instead of playing for Man City or Barcelona or Real Madrid, he was basically like a vagabond playing in Turkish league or even a smaller European countries, where he was just basically trying to keep holding on to that dream of becoming that superstar, or at least when that dream died, he just basically tried to hold on to become a, like a soccer player or soccer star that he was going to be, but it never panned out. And Lord knows where he is right now. But I'm sure, Sullivan and his family are very much aware of the, the Freddie Adu effect. And, I think it's very, very important that, if you have a child who is considered a very good player, old, young or old, a boy or a girl, sometimes it's important that, we give the kid an opportunity to be himself and not put too much pressure. And Lord knows, he won't be on the 2026 team, even as good as he is. He's only 14 years old, and he will be 17 or 18 by that time comes.
You can't put that pressure on him. Yeah.
No. But once he turns 18, so 4 years from now, around 2028, he already has an agreement with the Manchester City to be transferred when he turned 18. The funny thing is, if you're considered a non-European, a player or an athlete, you have to wait until 18 years old in order to transfer to Europe, the top 5 leagues like England, Germany, Spain, and Paris and Italy. Excuse me, France and Italy. So you have to wait until 18 years old. Now, if you're players like Christian Pulisic, who has a Croatian passport, you are able to sign with the European clubs, no matter at what age. I don't think there's any age limit to it. So. Right. This is somebody that you're going to hear a lot of, and you're going to hear a lot about this kid.
Almost everything to me. It's my club. Watching Quinn like on the sidelines of his games, and I've just been in and around the club since I was a little kid. So yeah, this is my home, and it's an honor to sign here for my first professional contract. But it means a lot that they see the talent in me at such a young age, and I wanna prove myself and work for this club in this city, all these fans. So yeah, to be honest, nothing really has happened yet, and the work starts now. I still have a lot to do, and my main goal is to win the MLS Cup. So development starts now, and it does feel nice, but yeah, I mean, still a lot of work to do for my part, and a lot of room to grow.
So the name Quinn he was referring to is his older brother Quinn, who is also a very good player and has been targeted on the European scene for a while now. And as I said earlier, he's going to the Paris Olympic team later this summer. And the chances of both brothers playing on the same field could not be more enticing for the Major League Soccer to try and brand their league and try to sell the league, even if it's only for like a couple of games. Messi certainly has done wonders, but Messi cannot continue to play forever. And there's a possibility that both the Sullivan brothers could be on the pitch this year. Whether it's his older brother Quinn could be playing maybe in his final weeks or months with the Philadelphia Union. I'm sure that the MLS and the Union will try and sell and milk that as much as possible. So if you hear about the name Cavan Sullivan, you heard it from us because you're going to hear about his name a lot, not just this year, but also moving forward as he hopefully fulfill his potential and become the next great star for the United States soccer. Because eventually, when the guys like Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie is of the world, who are considered one of the great U.S. stars right now, with a lot of expectations on their shoulder, with the 2026 World Cup coming up in North America, U.S., Canada, and Mexico hosting. You have to obviously think about, okay, who is the next star? Who is that next big thing? And hopefully, both Quinn and Cavan are ready to fill that shoes, obviously, with the the post 2026 World Cup, when the player starts to get older, and obviously you have to start thinking about that next cycle and that next young player who will be wearing the red, white, and blue and will be leading the U.S. soccer for years and years to come, Ken.
Right. And, you know more about this story than I do, but I will say that we all remember Freddie Adu, as you mentioned earlier, Stephen, and the pressure that was on him. I remember there was a 60 Minutes story on him. That he was the next greatest American soccer hope. And unfortunately, he didn't pan out. A lot of things happened. He had injuries. He had a lot of things. I think the pressure also got to him. He did play on the U.S. national soccer team, but not as a star, mostly as a reserve. So I really do think that hopefully that Cavan Sullivan is nurtured properly, and don't put the pressure on him and saying he's the next great American soccer hope. Just say that he's going to be contributing, and right now he's saying all the right things, and he seems to have a good head on his shoulders, Stephen. But again, it's still a long ways for him. He's just 14, and let's just let him be a kid and let things play out. Is it we all remember things like Todd Marinovich, the stories about him.
Right. And then the balls, Lonzo, Lamelo, and the Angelo, the obnoxious father with the baller brand shoes and all that kind of nonsense.
And even the unrealistic expectations on Bronny James, as well. So let's let the kid be a kid. So let's hope that he can nurture and develop into a player. and not put too much pressure. Make him start an MLS game at age 14, where he was literally be a boy amongst men. So let's see. Let's let him develop and let him play. And eventually, when it comes time to put him on the pitch, let's see how he does.
Absolutely. Having a brother who's already a professional certainly helps. I think his parents are seems to be doing a very good job raising both boys, and I'm sure the parents are certainly have a huge influence on the contract negotiations and how this played out. And hopefully Cavan, when he's ready, he will be ready. And then hopefully if Quinn is still around to play with him this summer, and while the MLS season is still ongoing, it will be very, very positive news, because I know MLS could definitely use a lot of positive news moving forward, Ken.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Ken, I think we've covered a lot of grounds tonight, and as always, a great conversation with you, and obviously you got a lot of work with the Awful Announcing as an associate editor, of course, and we thank you for joining us tonight. And as always, we talk a lot of different things outside of the traditional sports scenes, and we thank you for watching us tonight, and hopefully you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, linked that is below. That is also streamed as well as our X link as well, as you can see here on our name next to our the Twitter handle next to our name, as you can see below as well. Ken, thank you very much as always. I know you're off tomorrow, so hopefully you have a wonderful day off, and we'll get together again next week on our Double A Team podcast. You have any final words, Ken?
Yeah, love just quickly a couple things we'll keep an eye out for next week. Of course, we'll talk more about the NFL schedule release, which will know all the games and where they're going. Also, too, we should know by next week whether the TNT will lose the NBA after a very long partnership that goes to the 1980s.
Okay.
Bill Simmons has already predicted and has already said that it's a done deal, that the NBA has decided on NBC. I don't think it's quite done yet, but it's going to be very close. We'll keep an eye on that as well. And of course, by next week, we'll know who's in the NHL and NBA Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. We'll let you know about that and give you our predictions and who advances to the finals as well. So, Steven, we'll talk all about it next week. We'll be back here likely on Tuesday. So next Tuesday. So keep an eye out and keep an eye on your feeds. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Ken Fang, I am Steven Negishi. We thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week on the Double A Team podcast live stream.